I believe we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Akash Office Hours. Excited you guys could be here. We have a very exciting event for you guys today. It's our end of year update. So we're going to have a bunch of things to cover. We have some special guests, and I think you're going to get a lot of value from attending today's live stream. I want to thank you guys for doing this. This is the second office hours I believe we've done. Is that right, Eric? I think the first one was just you and I.
Yeah. First one went off well, so hopefully we can replicate that.
Yeah, well, we have a special guest today. We have Greg Osuri, CEO of Akash. So we'll jump into Greg here in a minute. So kind of the run of show today, we're going to be doing a couple community updates, let you guys know some of the things we've done over the past few weeks here at Akash, maybe tease some fun stuff we have on the community side for next year. I'll hand the mic over to Eric, our Director of DevRel here at Akash. He'll kind of give some product updates, some things that you guys should take note of. And then we'll pass the mic to Greg, who will give kind of an end of year product update covering some of the new technical aspects of Akash and some fun, exciting things you guys can look forward to going into next year. So we have a lot of things to cover. I want to mention in the chat, if you guys have questions throughout today's conversation, feel free to put them in the chat. And towards the end of our presentations here, we'll get to as many of those questions as we can. We'll also cover some of the great questions that were asked in Twitter. So thanks to everyone that actually responded to that Twitter message, asking some great questions. So we'll get to those towards the end as well. So first things off, so for folks that don't know me, I'm Adam. I head up community at Akash. Been here for about 8 months. Love working here. A lot of really cool things happening. Excited that you guys could join this call today. On the community side, we have a handful of things that we've done recently. So some of you guys might have actually attended a recent Twitter Spaces event that we did with Polygon. That's an announcement that we actually put out that Akash is offering decentralized infrastructure to the dApp developers in the Polygon network. That's very exciting stuff. To learn more about that, you can go check out our blog. But if you want to also learn more about that, you can go check out some of the Polygon documentation and Akash documentation about those things. Some upcoming events that we have coming up. So I'm working on doing a community demo day. So basically, community demo day is an opportunity for all of our Akash community members to demonstrate the projects they deployed onto Akash. Not only to kind of get feedback, but also find potential partners on the projects that you're building out. So stay tuned for that. Looking to do that in early January. So more information on that. We are planning a pretty big Twitter Spaces event. I can't give away too much on that quite yet. But the Twitter Spaces event should be a good one. So stay tuned. I can't give away too much more. Just be ready for that in early January. We are reviewing a handful of upcoming events that ETH Global is putting on. So ETH is putting on ETH Barcelona, ETH Dubai, and I think there's even ETH Denver. That's the big one. So here in the States, that's probably one of the biggest crypto developer conferences of the year. We're reviewing that. Hopefully we can attend some of those things. So stay tuned for us to potentially do some meetups alongside those events. And the final community update I want to mention is, for those that are unaware, we do have a community program called the Akash Insiders Program. And the Akash Insiders Program is basically a leadership program for highly influential and engaged crypto community leaders inside of the Akash community. Currently, we have about 30 people around the world that are actively responding to questions in our forums, putting on localized events, creating really good educational content on kind of how to deploy, how to validate, and how to provide compute for the Akash network. If you guys are interested in that, feel free to send me a message on Twitter or message through us through our Telegram or Discord, any one of the different community channels that we have available. Feel free to hit us up and we'll follow up with you there. So those are some of the fun community updates that we've had over the past couple of weeks and some fun things you have to look forward to in 2022. At this point, I wanted to hand the mic over to my colleague, Eric, who is the Director of Developer Relations at Akash, and he'll give you guys some fun updates on the product side, and we'll go from there. So Eric, feel free to jump in.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Adam. I appreciate the intro. So yeah, as Adam said, I'm Director of Developer Relations over here at Akash. I've been with Akash for almost, 5 months now. It's pretty crazy. Akash was basically my intro into the Web3 space. I come from Web2 traditional cloud hosting. So really, really cool to see the future, be part of the future. From a product side, we're going to take a look at a couple forward-looking things. One of the biggest is next year. Everyone needs to get ready because testnet is coming. Winter is already here, but testnet is coming as a light at the end of the tunnel. It should be a lot of fun. This is going to be probably one of the biggest test nets we've ever run. Tons of new features, tons of stuff to actually test. So really looking forward to all the participation we can get off that. From a hackathon's perspective, we have the Polygon Hackathon running. This is a long-running hackathon. Basically, the idea is people in our community can help people in the Polygon community to migrate across to Akash from AWS. So actually taking, decentralization, which most of these DApps are not actually decentralized on the back end, taking them from the traditional monolithic cloud provider and bringing them into the Web3 world. So really cool project there. Also, a couple of cool projects to highlight in the community. We've got Akashalytics Tool recently got fully funded by the Community Awards Board. So they're going to be working full time to actually improve the desktop deployment tool. It's quickly becoming the most full-featured tool for deployments in the ecosystem. So huge stuff moving there. Awesome Akash Plus also got funded by the Community Awards Board. Basically what it is a repository of working files, deployment scripts for particular workloads on Akash. So if you want to run, a WordPress site or things like that, it's basically a curated list that tools like Akashalytics can actually use to populate, kind of predefined workloads. So really cool there. And then thirdly, the Community Awards Board also funded Akash Audit, which is a really talented guy named Anthony, who's been part of the community for a very long time. He's been a pen tester for many years, and he basically started a company to start auditing providers on the network. He's going to start signing different providers as valid. Yes, they're giving the resources that they're claiming, those sorts of things. So look for a lot of movement there. It's going to add a lot of validity and security to the network. He's also been working on a lot of other kind of small security audits. He recently did one on the blockchain memo fields themselves. He did a blog post on that. So a lot of good stuff to check out there, but he's also been fully funded. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Alani. Alani is basically the program manager here who manages the grants program. He does a lot with the hackathons. He does a lot of the work around that. So I will hand it off to him. He's going to give a brief intro to the grants program.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for the very nice introduction. My name is Alani. I am Technical Program Manager here at Akash, and I'm going to briefly talk about the grant program. Now, the Developer Grant Program is a community-driven source of funding and support for the community and promising developers and other teams. And the purpose of the grant program is to grow the developer community, encourage collaboration between developers, in addition to promoting further adoption and usage of Akash Network's decentralized cloud. Now, there are a lot of things that come out of the grant. You can get up to 100 grand, believe it or not. There are various projects in various stages of the grant program as we speak. You can apply for grant awards with amounts ranging from 100 to 100K paid in AKT. You can also collaborate with other members of the community and also participate in events like demo days, collaboration, marketing, social media engagement, and joint events and activities that further harmonize the Akash ecosystem. Now, all software developers and engineers are eligible for the grant program, and with the tokens that come as a grant award, you can use them for many things, including deploying container-based applications and managed Kubernetes clusters, host websites on the Akash open source cloud hosting platform, build web apps, and you can actually apply for more grants. And as a provider, you can securely lease out your data center as well. So there are many ways that the grant program really benefit the community, harmonizes our different development partners, and also really brings the community to a place where it's a fully collaborative ecosystem based on the shared responsibility of really leveling up the decentralized cloud. Now, you can get started by simply, coming onto the forum, interacting, participating in discussions. And there are multiple tiers of the grant program as well. We have things like the seed grant, we have the incubator grant, we have accelerator grants. And as the grant program evolves, there'll be more sub programs coming out of that as well. Now, Eric mentioned earlier some programs that the grants have funded. And these programs are chosen based on the Community Awards Board, and those proposals are reviewed in addition to the monthly voting exercises that come with that. However, there are a lot of examples of projects with, we talk about developer tooling for Akash, including SDKs and APIs, open source dev tools. I think Homebrew was one of them, creator platforms, decentralized web services, backend as a service, platform as a service, open source communications like chat and email, desktop deployment interfaces, hosted deployment interfaces with wallet integration, app store interfaces, open channel on Akash is an example, persistent storage integration, CS, Skynet, file-based, Arweave, code stack, and what have you. So there's a lot of things going on with the grant management program, and I really encourage the entire community to come in, interact on the Akash forum, on the Discord channel, on Telegram. I mean, we're everywhere, and we're here to support the community. And, Adam, Eric, Greg, any additions, very much welcome.
Yeah, I think that was a great overview. Thanks, Alani. For folks listening in, what would you say is the best way? You mentioned kind of going into the forum to learn more about the grants program. What are some of the ways you've seen projects kind of, start off with like potentially getting funding from Akash? Like, if you were a project, you have some great idea, how would you suggest somebody kind of getting going and like starting with the program?
Yes, so the first part is communication, because there's an old saying, when there's dialogue, everybody wins. So just get involved, come into the forum, ask a question, answer a few. Many ideas come from that interaction because, it's a community. And many times projects actually come as an offshoot of other projects that are in flight. People gain ideas by interacting with other developers and other projects. In many cases, some projects might arise from non-developers, non-technical folks just participating in a forum or on the Telegram channel or on Discord or on one of our social media channels. So if you want to get involved, just go, forum.akash.network. It takes literally less than 2 minutes to set up a profile. Just start interacting. Everyone's eager to share. Everyone's eager. Sometimes it starts out a simple sarcastic joke on the forum turns into a project. I mean, these ideas just flow naturally when we all communicate. So the great starting point is just get in the forum and start interacting.
Very cool. Very cool. And yeah, and I'm just going to make one more note before we pass the mic back to Eric, if he has anything to add, and then we can go to Greg. If you want to learn more about the grants program, we have our blog where you can actually go and read all about the grants program that we launched. How long ago did we launch that now? It's been a couple of months. Is that right?
It's been almost 6 months, I think, right?
Yeah, I think about 6 months now. Yeah, so a lot of great projects are coming in there. So if you want to learn about more about the program, check out our blog. You can also go to the forum, as Alani had mentioned, to learn more about the grants program. But thanks, Alani. I appreciate it. I think some folks that are in the chat had questions about it, so I think that was very useful. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Cool. Cool. Eric, any other quick updates you had? Anything else you wanted to mention before we pass the mic to Greg?
Yeah. So again, I just want to keep things forward looking. We did publish a product roadmap this quarter. Highly recommend everyone checks it out. If you got any questions, come into Discord, ask them. We're always here to willing to talk about this stuff. It's really cool. Some cool things in the future. GPU support is on the roadmap, so everyone cheer. Yeah, that's on its way. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Greg, over to you.
Thank you, Eric, Alani, and Adam. For folks that haven't met Alani yet, he's our he's leading our ecosystem, and we're very excited to have him. I did publish a roadmap update this morning or last night. I highly recommend you check it out. But the overarching theme for the last quarter was to get Web3 full stack capable, in the sense Akash now supports hosting of full nodes with persistent storage. And this has been one of the most requested features. What that means really is, before on Akash, when you deploy an application and say you have to restart the application, you would lose all the data because Akash only supported ephemeral data storage. Now, the storage persist between restarts. So in case a fault happens on your application, that your application may need to restart, you don't lose all the data, or you don't have to bootstrap the data from a persistent storage like RV or file or sorry, that doesn't mean there is no utility for RV or SIA. It just means your data persists between restarts, so your restarts will be much faster. You still need a permanent storage solution to back up your data, because uh, once you lose your lease, there's no guarantee, or you will lose your data. So persistent storage allows for large data heavy applications like blockchain nodes, full nodes like Solana, like Ethereum full nodes, to be comfortably hosted on Akash. I mean, right now, I believe the big limitation is 1 terabyte on Akash, but with persistent storage, sky's the limit. We'll be removing the artificial limit. So you'll start seeing soon very 10 to 15 to 20 terabyte storage applications. Very excited about it. And we have a new network dashboard. This is inspired by Akashalytics. It has similar Akashalytics metrics, but we do plan on adding a little more provider centric metrics, uh, maybe audited attribute centric metrics in the meanwhile in the future. I mean, this is a dashboard built by the core team. We don't anticipate this moving as fast as Akashalytics would be moving, but this is sort of like an official sort of like truth coming from the core team. I still encourage folks to develop different analytics depending on what they think is important to the market, and I would love to see how market sort of like responds. And we do have a faucet. Drip.akashnet.network is the URL. The faucet allows for developers to acquire, small amounts of AKT to be able to try out Akash deployments. Right now, it's very challenging, as you're required to go to an exchange, be it centralized or decentralized. It still adds a good degree of friction. So to remove that friction, our solution was to give a faucet. Unfortunately, in our beta testing, we discovered there was enormous amount of abuse. So we have to employ methods that delays the release of tokens. Right now, there is a small manual step involved, but hopefully, we will be able to identify these patterns and add defense for these patterns in a more automated fashion. But yes, you if you are a developer and if you have legitimate use case for Akash, or you want to just try it out, go to drip.akash.network, and once you're approved, you will get a few tokens for you to play around. Hostname migration, again, this was a big feature that was requested, as you know the migration in the sense, when you were redeploying your application, the host names that you get, the automatically assigned host names that you get, weren't persisting. So you have to go and update your DNS provider every time you redeploy on Akash with a new host name. That obviously is not very practical. That's extra delay in your deployments, as you have to go and update these DNS providers. DNS takes a long time to propagate. So with new this hostname migration features, whatever hostname you get assigned onto Akash persists across deployments. So it adds a level of comfort and ease of use for Akash. I'm really excited about that. Inflation decay curve, as you know, inflation. Akash uses a decay curve function for determining the inflation rate. The inflation rate is essentially the rate of emissions of new tokens. Akash is a fixed supply, 389 million, but it started off as um, at 100 million tokens. The 289 million tokens will be released over time in a span of 80 years. So that decay curve function is now manual and adjusted based on governance proposals. But with this new feature that removes the burden on the governance and puts the decay curve function on chain, so it happens automatically. This is currently being tested on testnet. and will be released to mainnet potentially mid 2020, mid January 2022. Shell access. A lot of folks have asked for accessing your running containers. This allows for easy debugging of a container that's currently running. Allows for quick access to files, quick access to anything that you want from a container, very similar to how you would use a VPS. That feature is well and live in the testnet. Highly encourage you to go check it out. Ethereum Bridge, we're very excited. Now, this opens up quite a bit of possibilities. As you know, a lot of folks have complained about exchange listings and whatnot. A big challenge, today is uh, centralized exchanges haven't been very uh, inclusive for Cosmos based tokens. It's just not us, it's persistence, high quality projects such as persistence, osmosis. None of them get listed on a centralized exchange. And the reason for that is they don't support Cosmos assets. Now, well, there are two ways to fix the problem. Well, the best and obvious way is to, you know, uh, provide support in these exchanges to these exchanges to list Cosmos assets, or use other ways like doing an ERC20 pair. Now, I don't particularly like an ERC20 pair, especially for a Cosmos asset, because the only purpose for ERC20 is liquidity and really nothing else, and it adds an additional step in the utility where you have to exchange the ERC20 to a Cosmos native asset in order to use that, because most Cosmos assets are actually highly usable out of the box, and adding the additional step is not great for user experience. We are trying to reduce the number of steps, not increase the number of steps to utility. So in that vein, in most projects that cloud computing projects that have a ERC20 pair are not legit, because you can't really use ERC20 practically for anything that's not DeFi or NFT, because the cost wouldn't allow it. So in that vein, we were trying to shut, and on top of that, we had to secure this bridge. Most bridges are insecure, so there are a lot of limitations as to why ERC20 is not the best choice. But we do understand there are the exchanges may or may not support. Since there's uncertainty on how long it takes for exchanges to support, we started supporting an ERC Ethereum bridge called Gravity Bridge, and I'm very excited. Gravity Bridge launched when mainnet on December 14th. It's been a week, so we're testing it actively, and we should see potential ERC20 contract for Akash, hopefully in the near future. And that's been quite a bit of product stuff our team has been up to. And overall, the arching theme, I believe, so far has been removing surprises and getting product to a mode that's capable to host advanced workloads in Web3. And we always optimize for. So far, we always optimize for composability over usability, and the reason for that is if you design your application to be highly usable, you have to compromise on workflows. So it's always a trade-off as to how easy you want the application to be or how capable you want the application to be, right? Anything that's easy means you're sacrificing workflows. So instead of choosing easiness, that means usability, we chose composability, where developers can take Akash and actually build on top of it. That's why you see developers like Max, people that get and understand the power behind Akash Network and not be limited by its usability, lack of usability features. So we optimize for composability, and that's when you get beautiful tools like Akashalytics and other deployment tools and amazing, ecosystem that we have so far. Now we understand the usage patterns. So now it's time to work on usability. Now, while not sacrificing composability. So we started work on a command line interface that's hyper usable. Now, the design for this interface came with months of learning from different users of Akash Network, the ecosystem, and how they use the tool, and what are some of the friction points to that we can solve for. And I'm very, very excited for the deployment tool that's coming out, the command line deployment tool. I would consider it as same level as Heroku or a Vercel that I hold with high regard. And it's been quite challenging for people to actually pick up the Akash deployment, the Akash command line tool right now and run with it, because it is pretty heavy, right? It is optimized for composability. So that means you just can't pick up the tool and expect to be intuitive. And we did that on purpose. It was not to ignore usability, but it was to optimize for composability. So a big theme for next quarter is going to be hyper usability, right? So we are very excited on for this command line tool that's coming out, ideally before the testnet. So the testnet should be mid-January. So keep an eye out for it. It's going to be massive testnet. It's fully incentivized. That means you get if you're a developer, if you participate in it, you will earn quite a bit of Akash tokens by performing tasks, by building on it. There's going to be a lot of developer activity in this testnet, and we've been planning this for a while. And all the features that I just talked about is going to be tested in the wild in the testnet before going to the mainnet. That's usually our flow. And all this, again, is preparing us for a phenomenal Q1 2022. And a big feature that's coming out in Q1 2022 is GPUs. As you know, some of you know about this feature, but for those of you that don't know what GPUs are essentially graphical processing units. They are critical for processing computing machine learning applications on Akash. And there's ubiquitous amount of GPUs available. A big source of GPUs in the next 6 months is going to be from Ethereum miners. As you know, Ethereum is moving off proof of work to proof of stake. That unlocks enormous amount of GPU capability in the market that has really nowhere to go. And Akash, being a prime cloud partner, would be an amazing use for us to use this GPUs and offer that at a discount that's significant from what's being offered in the market right now. Uh, the demand for GPUs is increasing, and we are very excited to it. And the capabilities and the applications you can do on GPUs is significantly higher than what we have right now. That puts us in an amazing position eventually. And I hear a lot of folks ask, when Akash over Amazon? So two things that need to happen for Akash to be over Amazon. First thing is we need to come to feature parity, in the sense like Amazon is just not about running containers. Amazon is much more than that. Amazon has 300 services, backend services that kind of form this phenomenal service fabric where users can pick and choose these services to run their own cloud. Akash only has one service, which is container hosting. So we need to come to 300 services in order to have parity with Amazon. And we're not going to do that as a single organization or a single network. We're going to do in the same way that we have so far done and succeeded, which is through a decentralization. That means we're going to enable a services marketplace by end of 2022. And that will come from that will have all the tenants as what Akash is built upon, which is openness and decentralized and permissionless. So enabling a marketplace where true talent can be unlocked in an open way is going to get us to the feature parity that Amazon has over us, right? And the second thing is going to be usability. Akash is built in 2021. And 22 is going to define what usability on Akash will look like. So designing a cloud that addresses the needs of a modern developer, where Amazon is increasingly getting distant away from a developer, is going to be the thing that's going to put us over the edge. So very excited for next year, and keep a lookout for the testnet. I'm looking forward to seeing your participation.
Sorry, I was unmuting. Wow, Greg, thank you for that. The chat is exploding. People are super stoked on everything you said. A lot to unpack there. Before we get to some of the questions in the chat, I wanted to go over a couple questions that we received on Twitter when we pulled a call up for some Twitter questions. And I think some of this will cover, you actually just covered, but I think it's good to kind of rehash some of these things. So first one I want to cover is a question by Cosmo Jetta. So if Cosmo Jetta is on this, thank you so much for asking this question. But basically, he wants to know how the response has been by DeFi admins after they've switched to Akash. Like, how do they react? What are their thoughts? What's their feelings? Yeah, just want to see if you had any updates on that.
Yeah, so I'll be very, very honest. Akash, people love Akash, right? What they love about Akash is its permissionless and its composability. Once they experience Akash, there are two types of developers. One type of developer, advanced developers, usually understand the nuances of using Akash. And not so advanced developers, which are plenty of them, look at the user experience, limitations, and dismiss off. So the honest feedback that we got so far has been like phenomenal tool, but it's hard to use, and that we kind of knew that already, right? So, um, so, so, uh, but the advanced developers overcome the usability limitations by automation, right? So a lot of times we'll see, like Akash websites itself, we don't really touch the command line. We use GitHub Actions to deploy. So when you use GitHub Actions, you can just simply git push and it deploys to GitHub. You set it up once and you forget about it, right? If you're not so advanced developer, you're looking for UIs and whatnot. So it really depends on who you talk to. But our goal is to obviously get to a point where every developer has a very pleasant and delightful experience, right? So the moving forward, our theme is going to be optimized towards usability, like I mentioned. So overall, it's been a positive, positive, feedback. And any critical feedback we have is what we are working on improving. What's important here uh, is our diligent method on identifying use cases, getting feedback, iterating on the feedback, and shipping and moving. Right. So that's the only way we think we building products will be successful. And Alani, if you have any questions on the thoughts on usability, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, and thanks for emphasizing the usability-based feedback. I think it's important from a community perspective, also from an ecosystem perspective, because we in the tech space, when we build tools for those who also want to build tools on top of tools, sometimes as we go further down that path, we have to remember we're building for humans. And humans take different forms, humans, developers, non-developers, project managers, UI, UX folks, executives, investors, curious folks, people who just want to learn what's this thing about, decloud, what's DeFi, what's crypto, people who are just breezing through. And so that large umbrella encapsulates everybody. And I think as a company, we're in the place now where we are harmonizing these communities, and in many cases, communities within communities with their own perspectives and their own ideas. So that feedback is very important. Please keep it coming, because that feedback is ultimately what translates into how the product evolves, how it grows, and how it really addresses each one of those user personas.
Very cool.
Back to
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Alani. Thanks, Greg. So I wanted to get into, so this is kind of a similar question I'm seeing pop up in the chat a bit. So I wanted to kind of ask this one that popped up on Twitter by Maximus Hodolus, which is maybe my favorite Greek name of all time, or Greek, whatever you want to call it. What are some advantages of Akash over other decentralized cloud projects?
Right. So there are projects that came before Akash. There are projects that came after Akash. Let me address the ones before Akash. The closest would be iExec. So iExec is from the previous generation of projects that are limited to, the big fundamental difference would be who pays for cloud resources, right? In iExec, the user, the end user, that means, the like say you have an API on Akash. If you use the API, you end up being the end user, right? The end user pays for resources. So that means it's limited to only certain type of applications that are backend applications. So you can't really run an API, or you can't really run a website. You can't run WordPress on IXI. Now, obviously, Akash's model challenged that and came up with we came up with a thesis in 2018 and with a product in 2020. In 2020, right? In 2021, that attracted a lot of copycats. So one big copycat is Flux, right? So Flux kind of launched recently, and they basically, kind of looked at the model. We were successful. They didn't quite understand how. I don't think they're advanced enough to understand how Kubernetes and the backend infrastructure works, but they, you can see how they copied, because the attack us with the hashtags and create all this FUD and misinformation. That's what like smaller projects do to bigger projects. So they try to basically have a permission model, because they can't figure out how to do what we do exactly. So their model is about approval. So you can't really just go deploy a blog that you want, right? You got to get through a approval process, through a very centralized bunch of people saying, yes, this is a project that we approve and we're going to work on it, right? So nobody uses that, right? So you can't just go deploy a WordPress site, right? Or I don't know, we have like 500 applications on Akash. Try to deploy any of that on Flux, you can't. And they just use gimmicks and like just nasty techniques to get to us, where we focus on shipping product. There's another copycat called StackOS that keeps popping up. So I believe they're similar to Akash. They just do what we do in a less in a shitty way. To be honest with you, they even copy our hashtags. They call themselves the D Cloud. They copied our cloud foundation name. Our foundation is Decentralized Cloud Foundation. Their foundation is called D Cloud Foundation. So you really can't, so you can see how copycats act, right? So that's the lay of the land. But what's important is, I addressed this question because it was asked. I don't normally try to talk about lower grade products, but what's important is the most important thing. The only thing that's going to move the buck is user adoption and user focus and product focus. And while they keep shitting on us and doing what they do best, we keep building product. And our latest roadmap update is a testament to it.
Cool. Thank you, Greg. Yeah. And I got another question from a guy named Sean Kerr on Twitter. It's kind of in the same realm around like the only metric that matters is deployments, on like how many people are actually deploying onto the network. So he asks, you mentioned in an interview making Akash easier to use / deploy. So hopefully you can touch on any plans or progress.
Yes, that is a big theme of this quarter. We started laying out the foundation for a hyper-usable command line interface. Right now, a big challenge for using Akash command line is you have to type out long commands, right? Because in decentralized systems, you don't really have a central authority to tell you the settings or to tell you like what server to go to, right? You have to do things by yourself, so that adds challenge. It brings a lot of challenges to designing smooth user interfaces, but we found a middle ground that doesn't compromise the values of a decentralized system, but gives you the ability to be a lot more um, uh, frictionless when it comes to using command line. So our first and command line is where we begin, because ultimately that's the easiest and most straightforward deployment mechanism. But we are also going to take one step further. We're going to enable a sort of like a deployment only web services that'll include simpler deployments, that'll include price estimation, that'll include attribute discovery when it comes to audited attributes for providers, that'll include a lot of these amazing features that is really optimized for application developers, right? So my goal is to minimize the number of steps it takes from uh, the time you write your application to the time you put it on the cloud. A great example is Starport. Starport is a beautiful application tool built by the Tendermint core team that lets you scaffold and bootstrap a network from scratch, right? A fully sovereign Cosmos SDK based network from scratch. Highly recommend you check it out. And I was just using it to get a feel for it and realize they've done a phenomenal job in like getting you to run a local node, but the time from but then the moment you want to launch a test net and collaborate with others, it becomes increasingly challenging. So we want to be able to go there and with one single button be like, well, one single click, deploy this to Akash testnet, right? So we want to go to that level of usability, and the only way to really get there, first, is to fix our command line to be general enough, and then go further into frameworks like Starport, maybe Ruby on Rails, maybe Node.js. Um, get to that framework level integration, so it becomes part of the workflow, right? So it becomes so that Akash is just invisible on the background. You don't even know you're using Akash, but you're using Akash. And there's a beauty of permissionless systems because there's no sign up, there's another nonsense that you need to use. So the usability is only going to get better, right? And we're going to do that not in a big chunk, but incremental, like we always do. Ship, learn, iterate, ship. And as long as we keep doing that, I'm very confident we're going to build a phenomenal product that's hyper aligned with users.
Cool. Thank you, Greg. I think Eric, you had something to add?
Yeah. So from the community side, first off, just want to echo everything Greg said there is right on point. And if you have feedback for us, please reach out on any of the channels, the forum, Discord. Pretty much anyone on our team is more than willing to take feedback, about product, about usability, about anything. We love it. Recently just got in contact with someone who did a nice Reddit post talking about some of their difficulties they had on Akash, some of the success they had on Akash, and now that person is coming in to be a contributor to the overall community. So really cool stuff there. As long as people are willing to tell us what they need, we're very willing to work with them. From a community side, though, the tooling, what I brought up earlier with the Akashalytics tool, really good movement there. The community has actually started funding a lot of usability features themselves, which is just amazing. Seeing that kind of buy-in from a community is actually pretty rare. Not many projects I've worked on in the past have had that sort of initiative within the community. So the Akashalytics tool, very much in line with the same reasons that CLI improvements are happening. There are a lot of improvements happening with the Akashalytics tool around managing your deployments, around actually getting the attributes off of different providers, around usability, around wallet functions, all these things that traditionally have been kind of a little more difficult, just making them simple click operations. And that's been the focus of the Akashalytics team as well. So there is a lot of really good movement in all the right directions. Highly recommend you go check out Akashalytics GitHub, submit issues. They're very responsive. It's a really great team in our community. And of course, like I said, give us feedback. Anything you're willing to give us, we're willing to take and work with.
Cool. Thanks a lot there, Eric and Greg. I think we have time for maybe one more question. For folks we couldn't get answers to your questions, we'll review in the YouTube comment section, and we'll try to get some of those responded to via Twitter or maybe on Discord. But I want to thank everyone for joining in today. So last question comes from Twitter again. And this is something I see come up pretty regularly, so I thought it'd be great with our illustrious panel that we have here to answer this one and kind of squash it. As the price of AKT increases, doesn't the cost benefit disappear? Basically, I think what they're asking is, if AKT goes up in value, then using the network, does that mean it's more expensive to use the network? So I thought it'd be good to cover that.
Good question. It's not really, because the pricing is real time. So the providers adjust the pricing based, or are expected to adjust the pricing based on real time USD dollar value for Akash in order to stay competitive. And we're making it easier for that to happen. That is not on chain, but really comes down to providers, right? And we also are potentially working on a new model that adds a little more stability when it comes to pricing. I've taken quite a lot of feedback from the community. While Akash is a staking token, and its primary purpose is to protect or secure the network from a staking perspective as a proof of stake token, it is also used as a medium of exchange. And so that adds a little challenging because now the demand supply for Akash token determines the price of Akash token. So even though we can employ methods that can add a level of user stability in the sense that you can create a lease, destroy a lease, recreate the lease every time there's a jump in price, we understand this is not exactly a great mechanism for usability. So we are working on a new economic model. I can't promise uh, the exact dates when we're going to come out for this model, but we're early days in discussing. And fortunately, things have changed quite a bit from 2019, where we designed the economics for Akash, to 2021. We learned a lot from market, what works and what doesn't work when it comes to a more stable medium of exchange. So stay tuned. So we're working potentially on new updates where the Akash token becomes more deflationary than inflationary right now. Uh, so uh, and a lot of the deflationary properties will come from either burning or either converting that to a stable mechanism to use an Akash network. So yes, so the that leads to another point where the demand, as the utility, as the adoption grows for Akash, the demand for Akash tokens will grow up. Now, when it comes to demand, the demand is never linear, right? So right now you're seeing growth, which has been stable, about 480, around 400 plus applications, live applications, and around 60,000, I believe, total deployments on Akash. It's been steadily growing. The revenue has been steady, and it's very consistent with a 9-month-old product, right? Usually the growth and adoption doesn't come linearly. It never goes like this. It usually goes exponentially, right? And there are these pinnacle moments in growth curves that we see with any successful products. And a lot of them have to be either with usability or distribution channels or things that you don't really know what works until you keep trying different things. So once you start seeing that exponential growth, a lot of these adoption numbers, the demand for AKT driven by adoption and not speculation will become reality. And the only thing we can keep uh, doing in order for that to happen is to iterate and try different distribution channels, different economics, and all that is rooted into like improving economics. Maybe we've gotten this quite a lot. We've gotten this feedback a lot from our core users on like, hey, it'll be nice to have a stable medium of exchange. So we are working on it.
Very cool. Cool. So with that, we're about at time. So we're going to have to wrap things up. I apologize to all the questions that we got in the chat. I will try to review those that are in the YouTube comment section and get some of those answers to pop out on Twitter. I want to thank everyone for joining today. I wanted to do one final thing and maybe just a quick around the horn. This is our final live stream of the year. I wanted to kind of get people excited about what we're doing next year. And kind of appreciate all the great things that happened at Akash. So for me personally, I joined Akash in April of this year, and I worked in crypto before this. But I think the passion and the interest level and the focus on shipping I've never seen at a crypto project that I've worked at before. So I'm really excited for what we're doing next year. We have a lot of great things planned for the community, a lot of great in-person and online events. We're looking to launch different regional communities. Big shout out to our Akash Insider community. Without those guys at the tip of the spear, the tip of the Akash spear. So I appreciate and thank all of you guys for that. So going into 2022, I'm very, very excited. So maybe a quick around the horn. Maybe we'll go to Eric first. How are you feeling about 2022?
I'm excited. I'm really excited. Greg covered a lot of what's going to be in testnet, but for me, that's number one. Testnet's going to be amazing. It's really taking us from, I think, what was a proof of concept, a functional working product, all the way up to something that's more mature, and it is kind of really starting to find its feet, come into its own, and start to be able to run. So I'm super, super excited for testnet. Everything there is just going to be amazing.
Oh, thank you. And Alani, what are you looking forward to in 2022?
1, testnet. 2, community evolution. 3, community growth. And 4, more importantly, the really cool things that are coming out of the team at Akash. I think as more sub communities emerge from the parent community, we're going to see even more ideas. There's a lot of good things in the pipeline, a lot of fresh ideas, some funny, some controversial, but I think this is a game changer, and we are going to see a lot of really, really, really industry impactful activities come out of 2022.
Very cool. Yeah,
The most-
absolutely. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
The biggest feature for me would be the command line. I think, well, it's hard to understand the value of a command line without actually seeing it, unless you're a developer. Right? I mean, I want to make the command line so intuitive and super easy. And why I have a special passion for designing command lines. If you look at my GitHub, uh, it's github.com/Osuri. And I have several projects with over 1,000 stars, right? And all the projects that have over 1,000 stars were all designing command lines. I've written command line libraries used by Mish Hashimoto from HashiCorp, or or Kubernetes itself, right? They all use my libraries because they love the command lines we design. And looking at Akash command line to what it can be is what's exciting to me, because when I talk about like few pinnacle moments that significantly increase our adoption, I think the command line, a beautiful command line, is going to be one of those, right? And I'm particularly interested in our shift to usability, because so far we were able to demonstrate the power of Akash with not the best usability, but even with the current friction, we could see so much adoption. Imagine what you can get with amazingly usable tools. So there are a lot of these, and we are, again, remember, we are in the midst of the largest migration from Web 2 to Web 3, right? The fact that Elon Musk is talking about Web 3 just tells you how far we've come, right? And this is a pinnacle moment that we are looking at Web 2 developers and them using Web 3 tools with subpar experience is going to be bad. So my goal is to make sure that doesn't happen, right? So and it's and so when they use Akash, the user has to be delighted to a point that they don't want to go back to Web 2. So I'm going to put everything to making that happen. And of course, with a lot of hype comes a lot of hate, right? So people are hating on Web 2, on Web 3, and that's natural. People hated on Web 2 and Web 1, equally, right? So uh, so but the fact that they're hating or loving, right, is what matters. And we're very, very excited to be on the front lines fighting this fight. And trust me, this is going to be a fight that's going to be worth it. I'm very, very excited for the Web3 revolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are some great final thoughts, Greg. I appreciate that. I want to, with that, I want to wrap things up. We're a little over on time, so I want to be mindful of everybody's time. I want to thank Eric Zietlow, Alani, and Greg for joining today's call. I want to thank all of our attendees for joining. I think this was a pretty successful end of year live stream. Stay tuned to all of the awesome events that we have planned going into the new year. Stay tuned for some of those things. With that, I want to wish everyone on this call, everyone watching at home, a happy holidays, a happy new year. And with that, we'll say goodbye. So we'll see you guys at the next one.
All right.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.